I think public schooling has been a scam literally the entire time. I don't think there was ever a period in which public schooling was good.
Back to like John Dewey, when John Dewey started the public school system to make people good little factory workers. Wait for the bell. Don't speak until you're called upon. Military. Get ready to join the military when you're out of here. Sit still. Be silent. Follow orders. Like they like 1920s or something that they built.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and like defend the origins of public education or what it wanted to achieve. I just think right now it's a really key piece. And like you talk about the culture war, Tim, and about, how do you win a culture war? You engage in the culture. And I think for a long time, conservatives haven't engaged in some of these areas. And so with the schools, we have to engage because we'll lose our country eventually if we don't. It doesn't matter what we do. If the schools continue the way they are, then we lose the country.
You think it's because there's too many kids and there's not enough teachers? Why
No.
they're just shoving kids through without making sure they can read? Like they don't have enough attention?
I think the problem is schools shouldn't exist.
They're just poorly constructed, organized, like they're just boring as hell. I mean, I thought it was boring as hell.
It should all be pod-based. Schooling in this country should all be like
Small scale.
Super small scale of like local parents taking turns, like hey,
Farmhouse style kind of.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the problem is that we just decided to give up responsibility for raising our children.
Yep.
So the example I often cite is you go back 100 years and the son works with the dad. Dad goes to work and the kid goes to help him. Nowadays, dad goes to work and kid has no idea what his dad does. And then the dad comes home and says, "What'd you do in school?" And he was like, "Nothing."
Yep.
And so what do you get? It's obvious. You get you do this for 3 generations. You get a generation of people who have learned nothing from the past. They've acquired no skills. Someone super chatted us. The reason why the boat crashed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge is because boomers weren't passing anything down to the next generation. It's one of the first generations, probably starting with the greatest generation, actually, where and maybe because of the war, that kids separated from their parents, just isolated. And then you get the first massive expansion of that with boomers. And typically the boomers are having millennial kids, but some younger Gen X and stuff like that. But these millennials, I mean, I think about how I grew up and all my friends grew up. We did not. Well, I actually would say I was fortunate enough that I worked at the family business. My mom opened a coffee shop and I worked there on the weekends with my family. And I think that was massively beneficial to me.
No doubt.
And helping me, run a business and things like that. But the average person, I mean, my friends were going out riding their bikes at 13 while their dad and mom were working or doing whatever. They were literally doing no work. Then they get older and they're like, I don't want to work. I don't want to do anything. They don't know what their parents did. They don't know how to do anything related to finance. And they're left in their 20s when they should be getting married and having kids, completely clueless as to how the world works.
Did you make your kids get jobs?
Yeah, my kids, I don't make them. They like to. They like to have money. And, my son is very industrious young man. He started a window washing business and that was very good. So yeah, they like to have money and they, we live in a place where they can kind of have a little bit of independence and we encourage that.
How old were they when they started working?
My daughter started babysitting at like probably 11 or 12. Yeah.
That's a good age to start working.
Yeah,
That's
it
when I
was
started,
great.
12. I started walking a dog, the neighbor's dog.
Yep.
Just a simple local family job, babysitting.
One of the best
walking.
arguments, we had this bill in Florida that they wanted to ban social media for 15 and 14-year-olds. And I had a dad come forward, and one of the best arguments I heard against doing that was his son had a business. And he said, my son advertises using social media. This is part of, I encourage capitalism in my home. And he was like, I really don't want the government to tell me that he can't do that because it's healthy for him at the age of 15. It was really interesting.
That is interesting.
I fully agree with that. I cannot stand these people trying to ban the internet for kids. Ban this stuff. Like, police your children.
No, I think you
it's
should.
not the government's job.
It's a parenting issue.
Yeah.
I think right now companies are incentivized
completely
to
disagree with
have
that.
children on at
talk
an
about
early
it?
age.
You think like kids should be allowed to go to porn stores?
No, of course not.
Then why should they be allowed on the internet?
You want to ban kids from the internet
Yes.
completely?
Yep. 100%.
Okay. Well, I mean, my issue with HB1 was that it was specifically focused on a couple apps, and it was for 15 and 14-year-olds, no parental authorization included in it. And I asked someone who was very close to the bill, I said, how do the kids access the apps? And they said, well, and they said, what do you mean? I said, well, on a PC. And he said, well, no, of course not. They access it on a phone. And I said, okay, so phones are really bad for kids. I mean, we know that. So should we just say that kids can't have phones?
Yes.
Okay.
So the other answer, which may be the better compromise, is that websites are required to ID verify if they're containing illicit materials. We need to assess whether or not social media is addictive and destructive, like nicotine or any other substance. We know that Instagram, for instance, increases levels of depression. Or I should say, there are numerous studies that women develop, young girls get depressed, less so boys, but young people generally experience social anxiety and depression because of likes and because of shares. They're not getting enough followers, things like that. And it's intentionally designed to be addictive. Ian actually can attest to this, having worked on Minds.com,
Yeah, we
co-founded
had
it.
plenty of conversations about how addictive should we make it. It's like a slot machine. And I thought like it's 83% too unethical. I feel like that's really unethical to make it that addictive. Like I don't want to make it addictive, but then the company fails if it's not addictive. So you've got to make it addictive to get them keep coming back.
So we have a form of digital fentanyl, digital drugs, getting kids hooked and addicted. There's no ID requirements. So children can literally go onto any app and download, I'm not just talking about porn. They can download snuff and they can watch people get screwdrivers jammed into their skulls with hammers.
Wow.
The moral argument I make is that I think,
But so here's the issue with keeping kids off the internet in general. Perhaps it's like you got to be 13. Perhaps it's if a website is going to be displaying, like you go to the movies, NC-17. You got to have an ID.
Yeah, but apparently America's just forgotten that, Tim. Like age appropriateness. I mean, movie ratings are a perfect example. It's very clear. They're very direct about what's included and how they're rated.
And then on the internet, a kid can go on a website and watch a murder happen. So instead of saying, let's do nothing, either we pull a big ask, which is anyone under the age of 13 is banned from internet access. And of course, they'll still find ways to get it. Doesn't matter. Then we just hold responsible whoever was giving access. Like if an adult gives a kid a snuff video, the adult gets in trouble. Then we can say 14, 15, and 16 require some kind of parental approval for access. And then, or we compromise and say websites are required if they're going to be presenting NC-17 materials to verify the identification of the individual absorbing those materials. Otherwise, they will be held criminally responsible.
And I think that's happening now. You're seeing age verification for pornography at 18. The issue with that bill for us and for me was really there was no parental authorization piece. And I'm really concerned about the government, what the government can and can't tell you to do with your kids. Right now, they're supporting kids getting healthy body parts cut off. And they'll tell you that they have a lot of studies that say that kids will kill themselves if you don't let them do that. Right. And so I just kind of look at that and I want all of the policy to be really in service of fundamental rights, protecting our fundamental rights, certainly as a parent, that the government doesn't give you those rights. And then, be in service of limited government. So I think there are a lot of questions to ask. I think because of tech accelerating so quickly, that we need to be aware of all of the different ways it's touching our lives and try to have good policy, because there's a real, I think that there's a real sense of urgency for people to start making legislation around this, but that can bring some really bad policy too.
I think the challenging thing for us is that nobody wants to quit the drugs. How is it that someone who's addicted to a substance decides that they're going to stop?
Purpose. That's how I do it.
Or they hit rock bottom, right? Like things get really bad and they're like, I have to try and change this thing, which for teenagers, the cost of being addicted to the internet is high.
Yeah.
And so for people who say do drugs, they're doing hard drugs, they're addicted, let's say heroin or something. Perhaps it's rock bottom. I don't know that it's true. Some people just die. They no matter what their family does, they try to get them help. But if you read anything about like Narcotics Anonymous and stuff like that, it's people themselves have to choose to stop, and there's nothing you can do. You can certainly talk to them. You can persuade them. You can explain to them what it's doing. You can have interventions. But the change only happens when that individual decides they have to change and they seek help themselves. So the issue I see with that is when it comes to gambling, there are 12 casinos within 2 to 3 hours from where we are right now. 12.
Wow.
That is insane. Absolutely insane. People are going to keep voting to allow other people to engage in harmful, pleasurable, short-term activities until they disintegrate.
I think your illusion or your metaphor with the internet and drugs is interesting, and there are a lot of drugs on the internet in that way, your mental drugs. But I personally feel like the internet is is a greater boon than it is a drawback for society. And that honestly, in the future, our children are going to be the ones that build a better system. Like Thomas Jefferson was 26. There's going to be some 14-year-olds in a chat room crafting a new constitution or amendments to the Constitution, and they'll be giving. So if we ban them from the process of learning on the internet, that could be really, really, it would just really solidify the power structure that's already here and that wants to be here. And I have a lot of faith in the children of humanity, but I do believe guidance is necessary. And that's why I put that on the parents.
I just like to see a lot more energy being put into the idea of supporting like good parenting and working together. Like, you know, what age should a child get a cell phone? Like, again, the only way out is through. So let's have honest conversations about it. How is it really affecting kids? What would be an appropriate age? Can we talk? You know, I spoke at an event about TikTok and I said, okay, parents, you can wait for the government to ban TikTok, or you can just take it off your kid's phone. And then if I take it off and you take it off, then we're all mean together. But none of the kids have TikTok even in your own small community. Start there. To your point of the schoolhouse idea, you know, make that change happen at that point.
Actually, I got a better idea for you.
Okay.
Join TikTok.
And use it because it was amazing how they utilized TikTok to get out supporters. Is there any way that the right can do that?
Yeah, what you do is you tell your kids. You're really excited that you're on TikTok now too, and you're going to start adding their friends.
Instead of Moms for Liberty TikTok.
And then you start doing the corniest things, and you embarrass them.
Comment on every single one of their friends' posts.
And you say, when Johnny first had the biggest snot bubble in his face, and we all laughed, it was so cute. You should see him when he gets mad because he can't have extra scoops of ice cream.
They would just run for the hills.
They would be like
off Facebook. Yeah,
they'd lose it. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.